Hi, my name's Paul. I'm a personal trainer and nutritionist, and today we're at the beginning of 2025. Many of you are going to be on a weight loss journey, and you may have preconceived misconceptions about how to go about weight loss, especially with your nutrition. And today's video is regarding fat and how important fat is in the diet and how you should not be reducing fat. In fact, making sure that you get enough fat in your diet will help you lose fat. If you don't actually believe this, or if you've got questions about this, by all means send me a message, but it may at least get you to do some critical thinking and do some research of your own. So please watch the video. Hope you enjoy it. Like, subscribe, share it with friends if you think that it's actually giving you some good information. And I'll see you at the other end of this video. Enjoy. So let's start by talking about fat and how important it is in the human body and as part of the nutrition of the human species. It helps with satiety. So it helps you feel fuller for longer. It's part of your insulation, it's organ protection, it's where you store energy, it's important for vitamin absorption, especially D, E, A and K, as they are fat soluble. It's involved in the production and regulation of your hormones, including your sex hormones, estrogen and testosterone. It helps regulate temperature. It's also in your cell membranes, your structure, your fluidity. Insulates neurons, helps serve as a signaling molecule. And you also need essential fatty acids, omega-3 and 6, which act as messengers, helping proteins do their job. So what are healthy fats? Well, there's certainly arguments for animal fat or vegetable oils. There's a lot more evidence coming out now about animal fat being the preferred fat for human consumption, and that is something I'm going to get onto in the next stage of this video regarding our evolution, how we evolved eating animal fat from the Paleolithic times going back 2.5 million years. Your fat can come from animal and fish, and animal fat doesn't just contain saturated fat, it also contains monounsaturated and polyunsaturated, and also some amount of trans fats. This is actually the case with all types of fat. Every single type of fat contains the 4 different types of fat within that fat. So move on to the next part of this video about how we evolved to get where we are today. So let's look at the evidence that we have regarding how we evolved. 2.5 million years ago, the ketosis was a metabolic state characterized by elevated blood ketones and was likely common during the Paleolithic era up to about 10,000 years ago, when we started eating grains and started growing crops, and actually our brains then also started to shrink. So the dietary factors of the Paleolithic diet were high fat intake. They consisted of fatty meats, fish, nuts and seeds. They were low in carbohydrate, so there was limited access to cultivated grains, sugars and starchy vegetables. Well, there was no cultivated grains 2.5 million years ago. Sugars probably come from honey. Fruits were very fibrous and not very sweet, and didn't actually contain a lot of sugar. Starchy vegetables were not very starchy, but very high in fiber. So we were in constant spells of intermittent fasting because of unpredictable food source. So what were the evolutionary adaptations? Humans adapted to utilize alternative energy sources, that being the ketones, during periods of low glucose availability. We didn't need to actually source glucose as a dietary nutrient. We can make glucose ourselves. Our body doesn't need to eat carbohydrate. It can turn fat and protein into glucose, called gluconeogenesis. So our diet was high in fat. The body optimized fat metabolism for energy. That's one of the main reasons why we hold fat on our body. It's an energy source for when times are a little bit hard, when obviously during the Paleolithic times we may have eaten once a week or once a fortnight. We ate as much as we could, and then we went out hunting, and our bodies were sustained by our fat until we found another meal. There's evidence supporting Paleolithic ketosis via stable isotope analysis. These studies are of fossil human remains which indicate high protein and fat consumption. So, what were the benefits of ketosis? Well, improved cognitive function. Ketones provide alternative energy for brain function. In fact, the brain's preferred energy is ketones, although it does need glucose. It prefers ketones. It enhanced physical performance. Ketosis adapts muscles for efficient fat utilization. It increases resilience. Ketosis helps mitigate effects of caloric restriction and fasting. There were limitations, but some of these limitations are actually based on modern day biases, some of them. There was a variability in diet, obviously, depending on where you were in the world. Diets were obviously distinctly different, whether you were up in the north or the south. Interpretation of fossil records, limited data and potential biases, again, biases coming from modern interpretations of the evidence, and also biases from food and drug companies that now want to push us in a certain direction away from animal products. So the debate on optimal diet is an ongoing discussion among scientists and health professionals. So there's some key resources there. This is all garnered from AI rather than Google search. The Google searches tend to be more biased. So let's just get back to fat and a bit more information about fat. So specifically seed oils. So why are seed oils promoted as being good and saturated fat being bad? Well, it comes back to the money and who is controlling the narrative. Millions of dollars go into research and promotion of seed oils as a healthy alternative to saturated fat by the food industries, as all highly processed foods are full of seed oils and a very valuable commodity. Seed oils were originally a byproduct of grain, soy and cottonseed, and were used for lubrication and candles until a company called Procter Gamble found they could process cottonseed and create an edible, hardened, hydrogenated fat like margarine. They called that Crisco. Money was paid to promote this so-called healthy alternative to saturated fat and butter, and it became a massive product until it was discovered that trans fats, which it contained in high amounts, were actually the most unhealthy fat that you could consume, and it fell out of favour. Because of industry funding, the message is still pervasive that seed oil is healthier. But as I said earlier, evidence is beginning to point to seed oil, especially combined with a high-carb diet intake, as being more likely cause of general metabolic ill health and what is termed insulin resistance. Saturated fats are great for cooking and were the main choice of fat in cooking in the first half of the 20th century, when CVD wasn't a thing. So cardiovascular disease was almost non-existent 100 years ago. It sort of began to escalate in the 30s and 40s, sort of coincides with when seed oils became the main fat that people were now using. There was another thing that was still on the rise in them days, and that was cigarette smoking. But what happened is, into the 50s and 60s, some bad actors got involved and decided that saturated fat was the thing that was causing all the higher incidence of cardiovascular disease and type 2 diabetes. But that's for another video. What you've got to understand is that fat is an evolutionary preferred fuel for the human body, and if you want to lose body fat, it's important that you make sure that you're eating enough fat in your diet, because if you eat enough fat, you'll be satiated. You'll probably eat far less carbohydrate. Carbohydrate is going to elevate blood sugars. So if you're not eating carbohydrates, your blood sugars will drop. That lowers insulin levels, which help actually utilize the fat for burning as fuel. So the takeaway is, do not avoid fat, but make it quality fat. Animal fats are the preferred fat of the human body. There's plenty of people that are going to argue that. You may disagree with that, or you may have believed that that was the case. Ask me questions. If you think you can show me evidence to the contrary, by all means show me. There isn't any scientific evidence out there that proves categorically that animal fat and red meat are the cause of any modern diseases, even though there are bad actors that are trying to point us in that direction. Look, go and do your own research. As I always say in my videos, do your own research, advocate for yourself, do some critical thinking. By all means, ask me questions, but watch my other videos. I haven't got any skin in the game. I'm not trying to steer people in one direction or another for financial gain. I'm here to try and help coach people to better health. So by all means, follow me on my next video. Like it, subscribe it, share it, please, because I'm trying to do the best thing for human health.